We'd like to know when and where exactly is born the idea of your film.
I don't want to be pretentious, but it sort of was a vision in a way. I was lying in bed and had this image of a creature emerging from the ocean. So, I mean, that was sort of the moment that I realized I wanted to make this kind of film. But I'd been looking for an idea to use François Sagat in some kind of film, and I'd also seen a YouTube video that he did where he at Halloween, where he had vampire teeth in his mouth, and he was like acting like a creature for the camera. So I think that also was one of the moments where I thought I should make a movie with Sagat where he plays some kind of strange creature with teeth.
We know that you have made the film in few days. It was a directorial choice, or there are other motivations?
I actually went into the film without a script, essentially. So I had like a 3-page outline, no dialogue, and I purposefully left it open so that I could incorporate things spontaneously in the movie. So I knew I had, because of budget constraints, I only had a week to shoot it. But because there was no real script, I also had the freedom every day to just go out and spontaneously do some scenes that just depended on whatever location that we saw that we thought was interesting. So it was very open-ended in that way. It was shot in guerrilla style, so we weren't restricted by having to be in certain locations with permits and things like that. It was very fluid.
About location, we have seen the Greece location, and why this choice?
Well, it's not just Greece. I mean, the LA River is kind of a very classic LA location. It was used in Terminator and Grease, and lots of low-budget movies have been shot there as well. I mean, it's just a great it's a location that's a great metaphor for Los Angeles itself, which is that, you know, the river in Los Angeles is a concrete monument. I mean, there's just a little trickle of water in the middle of this huge concrete structure that goes on for miles and miles. So it's just a great metaphor for the kind of artificiality of Los Angeles.
LA Zombie, it's a silent film, so in this kind of film we know that the music is very important. So how do you have chosen the music for your film?
Yeah, it is. It's usually very important for all of my films. For this particular one, I asked someone who I met on Facebook, who's a composer, to compose some music specifically for the movie, and I asked him to do it in the style of these films that were made in the late 70s and early 80s with soundtracks by Giorgio Moroder and Tangerine Dream. So movies like Cat People, Paul Schrader's Cat People, and Firestarter with Drew Barrymore. You know, so it was the specific style of music from that period, which is kind of electronic sounding music. And then a friend of mine, Michael Carlson, who's a composer and arranger also from New York, he'd contributed quite a lot of orchestral music to my previous film, Otto, or Up With Dead People. So I asked him to if he had some music for LA Zombie, and he contributed it.
It's natural to talk about Christologic implication, and we want to know if the protagonist zombie is a symbol of Christ.
Well, you know, it's difficult to make a movie that has resurrections in it and not have it be associated with Christ. I would say he's more not necessarily a Christ, but a kind of a prophet or a saint. And he performs miracles, obviously. So, but having said that, I mean, he's meant to come from another dimension. So I think his character, although maybe there are some Christian symbols, he sort of transcends religion.
About all critics or comments about your film, there is a comment that you hate.
I mean, of all the comments that I've heard, which one do I hate the most? Oh, well, there's so many of them. I mean, you know, one thing that always surprises me is people. I'm often accused of making movies only to shock, or only to provoke. And I always, first of all, I always say, what's wrong with that? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with being provocative or trying to shock in itself. You know, John Waters is one of my, you know, role models, and his films quite often are set out deliberately to shock. And he has a book called Shock Value. So, you know, but for me, there has to be something beyond that as well. And I think the thing that people, some people don't understand about my work is that they're just immediately turned off by the extreme imagery, and they don't even bother to look under to what the film is actually saying, or to see if it might be operating on some different levels, you know. So there was a Toronto critic, for example. Well, you know, I'm very proud of my negative reviews. I got an F in Variety, for example. But there was a Toronto reviewer gave me 0 stars, and he just said essentially, there's no reason for this movie to exist. Which is kind of like the worst thing you can actually say about a film. So to him, I would just say, fuck you.
How do you have chosen the color of the zombie skin and his look? Because it remembers a mix between Avatar and Incredible Hulk.
No, I wasn't thinking of the Hulk, and I wasn't. Actually, the film was shot like already, you know, before Avatar came out, so I wasn't thinking of that. For me, it was just I wanted to because he came from the sea. I thought he should have a kind of an aquamarine, kind of blue kind of color, but also the idea was also not to be consistent with the color. So when you see the film, you notice that his color in each scene changes. Sometimes he's more green, sometimes he's more blue, sometimes he's more purple. And part of it is he's meant to be kind of a chameleon, where he changes his color according to the background. And part of it was that he might even not be just one creature, that he might be split into several different incarnations. But we didn't. You know, it was very conceptual. Like we didn't even paint his whole body for some of the scenes. Like he only has part of his body, which is more consistent with the interpretation that he's actually just a schizophrenic homeless person who has a delusion that he's a creature. So then part of it, he just imagines that part of him has turned into creature.
There is in your life an horror film that scared yourself more than other films, and which is your favorite porno?
Well, actually, one of the inspirations for LA Zombie is Mario Bava's movie Planet of the Vampires, which came out in the 60s. And when I saw that on television as a kid, it totally scared me really profoundly, because I don't know if you've seen the film, but these people go to another planet where there's this alien being living in another dimension who invade their bodies, even if they're dead, alive or dead. So the 3 of them have been killed, and they couldn't bury them on this foreign planet, so they just put them under this plastic sheet, and then they are invaded by this alien being that then they come out of of this plastic, and it's very eerie, and there's like mist everywhere, and it was extremely traumatic for me as a child. So that was one of the ideas behind or inspirations behind LA Zombie. My favorite porn films are 70s gay porn films. So Fred Halstead made these two great films. LA Plays Itself is one, and Sex Garage. LA Plays Itself is one of the great kind of porno art films ever made. It's kind of has it's part porn film, part documentary, part art film.
In LA Zombie we have seen all, necrophilia, porno, zombie, splatter. So do you think that it's possible for the future to make something more strong?
Well, you know, I always seem to be able to take it up a notch. You know, I've done a lot of extreme things in the past. I mean, when I made a neo-Nazi porn film, I never thought I would be able to go farther than that. You know, so in which a character, actually one of the skinheads, jerks off onto a copy of Mein Kampf. You know, so that's pretty out there. But I mean, part of my motivation as a filmmaker is to try to represent the unrepresentable, to show the forbidden, what is forbidden. So it's always a kind of, there's always something seductive about trying to show something that no one else has ever shown before.
Thank you.